Gotta be this. How you doing, Buster? Huh? What are you doing? Hi. Hi. Oh, you stink. I love you. Hey there. Welcome back to the ranch. Today we're working on a little bit of a different project because apparently I need more projects. I need all the projects. Today we're working on my 2005 Harley Night Train FXSTB FXSFXX STXS X. Because Harley, duh. I'm going to call this part one of giving this old girl a little bit of a revival, a little bit of a makeover. Maybe do some work to the engine, do some work to the cosmetics, and yeah, let's go. Shut up, cat! So a little backstory. I picked this bike up back in 2019, you know, before the world ended, you know what I mean. But found it on Facebook Marketplace, and I think I got a pretty good deal on it. It's 2005 Night Train, it was low miles, one owner. Yeah, I got a pretty good deal on it, and it didn't always look like this. In fact, it used to be a lot nicer than this. Oops. So here's the story. I was out riding this thing around, and it started making just this weird, god-awful scratching noise in the lower end of the engine. Didn't know what it was, but got it home. This was before I ever decided to start a YouTube channel, before I even thought about it, so that's why it's scattered apart right now. Anyway, started tearing into it, trying to find out what was making my engine noise. The first thing I went after was the cam chains, because I'd heard that the cam chain tensioners can come apart on these and cause all kinds of problems. Tore that apart, didn't find any problems there. So here's the original camshafts and cam plate, and yeah, the tensioners have just a little bit of wear on them, but nothing catastrophic, nothing that was going to cause the kind of noise that I was hearing. So my next step was I went ahead and I pulled the primary cover off to look inside of there. And I had heard that the stator bolts can come loose and start rubbing on the inside of the rotor. So I went to take the rotor off, and this compensator nut is supposed to be like some ridiculous tight torque. This thing was hand tight, like it just fell right off basically. And if you look close, you can see where the threads on the inside of this compensator nut are boogered up. And what that was happening was allowing the stator rotor to just wobble around, and this spacer here was just freewheeling. There was my noise. And you can see where it was causing the wear, where this part was freewheeling, and that's where my noise was. And I figured, hey, while I've got the cams out, you know, why not kind of get some bigger cams, do a little upgrade while I'm at it? So here we go, we got this. It's the Feuling 525 cams, and I've also got the cam plate to upgrade, the tensioner upgrade, the oil pump upgrade. So yeah, let's make some shit happen. Now, before I get the ball rolling here, I want to make a quick disclaimer. I am by no means a trained Harley mechanic. Okay, this is the deepest I've ever been inside one of these engines, so I'm kind of learning as I go. So whatever I say here, you know, take it with a grain of salt, take it for what it is. I'm just a guy in his garage working on stuff. There's plenty of good videos out there detailing step by step with like the torque specs and all this good information out there. This isn't going to be one of those videos. I'm going to go through it and do what I can, but if you're looking for like a detailed step by step, there's plenty of good videos out there. I found one by Feuling that's like a 5-part video of doing this cam plate upgrade. So if that's the information you're looking for, I'd suggest finding that video. Well, first things first, I want to get my primary drive side here put back together. I do not have the gasket for the outer primary cover. I've got to order that, so that'll be another day. But for now, I at least want to get the stator rotor, the compensator, and the primary drive put together. I was in here looking at things, and first things first, I noticed on the primary tensioner, there's supposed to be a roll pin that goes through that hole that holds that spring in place. Yeah, mine's missing. I don't know where it is. I looked all over, nowhere to be found. It went into the twilight zone. I don't know. So first thing, let's get a new roll pin in place there. Just tap it in. That's better. Let's make sure my spring guide fits in here. All right, cool. That's going to help me sleep better at night. Okay, next I'm going to put on my stator. One thing I'm going to do is this pigtail that slides through the case. I'm just going to put a little bit of lube on there so it slides through a little bit easier for me. Now for the stator bolts, of course I've got Loctite on those. A little bit of blue flavor. So to get the stator out, I had to disassemble the connector to get it to slide through the hole in the case. And I knew it was going to take a while. It's going to be a few months before I was going to get back around to getting this thing reassembled. So I wanted to show a little trick on how I know which pin to put into which cavity in the connector. So I took my paint pen. You see how this wire has one dot, and then my connector, this cavity has one dot. This wire has two dots, 3 dots, 3 dots. That's how I know which pin to put into which cavity. Okay, next I've got this spacer that needs to go on, and it slides on under a seal, so I'm just going to give it a little bit of lube just to help it slide around that seal. Then after that spacer, I've got a new rotor to replace that old one that had that wear ring in it where it was loose and kind of rattling around and making that racket. It's going to do its magnet thing. I can just walk it up here. Get this bad boy to spline up. Oh. Boing! After that, we have another spacer. Figure some way to cage this tensioner so I can get that chain slipped back on into place. Push that spring-loaded wedge back, and I was able to push the the shoe down, then just wrapped a zip tie around here to keep that caged so I can get my primary chain slit on. Find the spline, find the spline. There you go. Clutch basket's on. There we go. Compensator drive is on. Alright. I'm going to start with the clutch basket nut. Get a little bit of the cherry flavored Loctite. Oh yeah, it's left-hand thread, stupid. Hey, by the way, this nut is left-hand thread, so it's opposite. It's opposite, stupid. Yeah, because it's lefty tighty on this one. Now next up is the compensator nut. And I was looking this up online trying to find the torque spec for this bad boy. Looking around, finally what I found was a service bulletin from Harley Davidson. And the service bulletin number is M-1170. And it specifically talks about this. And what it was they upgraded the torque spec, I think, from 160 foot-pounds into what's called a torque turn or a torque to yield torque spec. So now what it's going to do is torque down to 75 foot-pounds and then plus an additional 45 to 50 degrees. But first, more cherry Loctite. I'm going to get this nut torqued first. And the answer I found on that one was 80 foot-pounds. And again, left-hand thread. Shift this thing up into 5th gear. Then I'm going to put something on my rear brake pedal to lock this back tire in place so I can get these nuts torqued down. Yep. Okay, yeah. Alright, sure. Yeah, that'll work. Hey man, when you're working by yourself, sometimes you just gotta improvise. Click. Okay, now this nut, 75 foot-pounds. Got my paint pen. And I'm going to use, I just picked one random point. I'm going to use that point of the nut as my pointer. So I'm mark the line there. Now I need to go no more than 50 degrees. 45 degrees, 50 degrees. Well, remember, from one point of the nut to another point of the nut is 60. So if I went just shy of that 60 degrees, that should put me in the 50 degree mark. So I made a line. There would be 60 degrees. That would be 50. Now that's kind of the ballpark, the shade tree way to look at it. So I just need to get my cheater pipe and turn it until that yellow mark lines up with that yellow mark. That wasn't easy, but we got it. See, I've got that point lined up with that line. We started here. Look at where we are now. I had to have my neighbor come over, and he was holding on the brake pedal over there for me and holding the bike steady while I'm over here on the cheater pipe, just giving that thing, giving her the business. But it wasn't pretty, but we got it. I do not have an outer primary gasket, so we're gonna have to order that. But I got something better. We got camshafts. Woohoo! Yeah, let's get ready to put these camshafts in. Huh? Yeah. And it came with a sticker. Yay. All right, here we go. Got the Feuling 525 cams. What is it? The hybrid conversion cam or whatever. The cam plate, the oil pump, the hydraulic tensioners, new lifters. Yeah, man, good to go. I'm excited. I think the first thing I need to do is I need to measure crankshaft runout. Maybe not the best rig in the world, but you know, it's what I got to work with. What I'm gonna do is turn the engine over and look for what my pinion runout is. Now that my in-play checks out fine, my next step is going to be to replace these inner cam bearings. And I've got a fancy special tool that I borrowed there to get those pulled out and then press the new ones in. New bearings came in the cam kit from Feuling. New cam bearings are in. That was easy peasy lemon squeezy. Alright, I think I'm ready to start assembling some stuff. I also went ahead and I cleaned off the camshafts, the cam chain, and a few of the other parts I'm going to need for this. I'm ready to install the cams into the cam plate. Okay, I'm going to take my cam plate, flip it upside down, set that duder just like that. And we're going to slop on some more lube, set it onto the rear thrust surfaces, so that looks like a rear thrust surface, and into the journals, so right there. Okay. Now I need to install the chain on the cams. I'm trying to get it on camera. I apologize, guys. There we go. Dot to dot. Now I need to flip these guys over, like so. I'm supposed to take the 100,000ths shim and drop it on the table, and then lube it up. That's gonna go right there. Now that my hands are slippery, it's time to put a snap ring in place. Try not to send this snap ring in orbit. Okay, that went on easier than I thought it would. Cool. And I'm also checking, you can see my dot here, my dot there are still lined up. Alright, I think my next operation is to go ahead and install the hydraulic cam chain tensioner. And the instructions, they kind of pointed out pretty clearly to make sure you put this thing on square. Don't do this and then rock it in. They say that will twist the shoe and make it uneven and make it wear unevenly, or bad things will happen. So we're going to put her on square, just like they say. Okay, now it's telling me to go ahead and install the oil pump onto the cam plate loosely for now. Let's go ahead and get that guy in place. And the instructions were pretty specific on not using any Loctite on the threads of the oil pump bolts. They said to, again, only use the MOLLE assembly lube on the threads and under the cap of the bolt. So I'm going to do what the directions say. Back here on the engine side of things again, I replaced the O-rings here and here. So now I am ready to put the cam plate assembly into the engine. Here we go. Okay, I'm just going to go around and give those bolts just a little snug. The book says 10 inch-pounds. My torque wrench doesn't go that low. Sorry, book. 120 inch-pounds on these bolts. Okay, so I got all the cam plate bolts torqued down. Then I went through, pretty much did the same thing to the oil pump bolts, these four. Now I went ahead and I put my crank sprocket on. Now the kit comes with several different spacers, and they're all numbered differently. So like this one is 110. And what we need to do is figure out the right thickness of spacer to put in here and then our cam gear is going to go on. And what that's going to do is going to set how deep in or out this cam gear rides, because we need it as parallel, as flush to the crank gear as we can get it. Okay, so we get that there. And I'm gonna get a bolt, and I'm just gonna lightly run it in just to hold it in place. Okay. Then you're supposed to take a straight edge across here until you get that thickness just right, or get that distance just right. Here's my straight edge, my 1, 2, 3 block. If I lay it flat against the crank pulley, I've got a pretty healthy gap right here. So I'm going to step that shim up one more size up. So we started with a 110, went to a 120, now we're at a 130. Yeah, that's pretty close. Let's get a feeler gauge. And this is an 8/1000. I can't get an 8/1000 in. 6/1000. Almost tries. Alright, I can get a cat. Go away. Okay, this is what I'm working with here. Would you go away? I'm trying to do manly things here. Five thousandths. I'm not sure what the spec is, but I think 5/1000 is pretty good, because the next step up is going to bring it 10/1000 more out this way. Cat! Oh my god! What? Got the cat out of the way and double checked my measurements, and I'm at about 5/1000 between these two. So I looked up the spec, and the number I found was no more than 10,000, so I think I'm good. I'm gonna send it. We're ready to put the drive chain on and get this thing timed. So here's what we got going on. Is we got our two cams, and they've got a dot and a dot, and you look and they are facing each other. Etched into the cam plate itself is this horizontal line right above my fingernail. So that dot needs to point to that line. That's how you know that the crank is in time. There we go. Got a cam bolt, red Loctite. I've got a crank bolt, red Loctite also. .24 foot-pound, 34 foot-pounds. Click. All right. We got our outer chain tensioner. Same thing with this one. I pulled it apart, flushed it out, just make sure there wasn't any chips or debris left in it. Looped it up. Little Loctite on our bolts. Alright, this is the next morning out here, and getting the ball rolling. A little chilly out, that's alright. I think my next step is to get the lifters cleaned up and bled and pre-looped, get the lifters in, the lifter blocks, and blah, blah, blah. But one other thing I'm doing right now is, part of the revival of this old girl is getting things cleaned up. Just kind of the finish has been kind of neglected. So here's what I'm working on now, is getting a lot of these little parts cleaned up. So a bit of an example of a before and after, the push rod covers. See how they're just old and dirty and dingy, and I've been over here getting them cleaned up and polished out. The same with the tappet blocks. So I'm going to be here for a couple more minutes getting this shiny stuff polished up, and then I'll be ready to start assembling. I am slopping oil everywhere. My pin in place. Something else I'm going to do while I'm here. The previous owner of the bike put these Vance & Hines pipes on it, and there's nothing wrong with it. Heck, that's what I would have chose. But it's just lacking something. It needs more loud. Needs more loud. So I'm going to yank the baffles out, cut them in half, stick them back in. finally ready to kick her over and see if I did everything right. Battery. This time, right? Yeah. Okay, try this again. Fuck! This bike run in close to 2 years. This makes me happy. Has a little bit of lope to it. I wish I had a before video of what this thing sounded like. Sweet. Sweet. Oh, it makes me happy. All right, it's back together, it's running. I think it sounds pretty darn good. I think we're going to wrap it up here and call this done for part 1 of the Night Train revival. I think I'm going to make this another kind of series. I've got a few more things I want to do on this bike, kind of over the winter, get it back up to its former glory and maybe even better, and hopefully have it all done in time for riding season after the winter's done. So yeah, thanks for sticking around. Thanks for watching. Hope you had a good time, and we'll see you guys on the next one.